Good afternoon and welcome to Rise. My name is Tim Robinson. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Tech East. We are at Tech East a business network connecting businesses with digital opportunities. And we are very, very proud to be working very closely with a number of partners across the Norfolk and Suffolk region of the east of England to hopefully bring you some ideas, some inspiration, some fact and some opinion this afternoon. And it's wonderful to see you all this afternoon. I'm sorry I can't see everyone face to face. We'd obviously love to be doing this in a conference room at a great venue, but we're going to do our best to make this engaging and interactive and a worthwhile use of your time this afternoon. So for those of you who joined earlier, during the registration period, you may have heard some of this already, but just to explain, we have got some functionality in this platform, in this Zoom webinar platform, to allow you to engage even if you can't be here in person. And so that includes a chat function. You can introduce yourself using the chat function. Tell us about yourself, about your business, why you're here, what you'd like to learn. And use that to engage with your fellow delegates and with all our great speakers this afternoon and our panel. We've also got some polls running, questions that we'd love your feedback on, things that will hopefully help shape the sort of direction of policy from local government, from in terms of business support, and all the things that we need to be kind of ensuring are in place to ensure that the already very successful East of England food and drink production ecosystem continues to flourish. So please do, if you've got time and the inspiration to do so, please do respond to the polls. They'll be running throughout the afternoon. And finally, we do have some Q&A. We do have a Q&A function, which is the best place for you to ask any questions of our panel. So we are going to be having a panel a bit later in the afternoon at roughly 4:05. Most of our speakers will be able to join us on that panel. So please, if you've got some questions for the speakers, please sort of save them up for the panel. We'll ask them in the Q&A at any point, and we'll be picking those up in the Q&A. And then just a kind of word of, I suppose, a word of warning. We've got an incredibly packed agenda for you this afternoon. Lots and lots of great speakers from all kind of parts of the world of food and drink production. And we are going to have to, I'm going to have to keep this quite ruthlessly to time. So if we are running over at any section, I will be, if necessary, cutting speakers off, but I hope not to have to do that. If you'd like to share what you're learning at Rise this afternoon, please do use your social media channels, you know, whether you're using Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and using that hashtag Rise. So just R-I-S-E, pretty straightforward. That's my sort of housekeeping intro done. It's great to see everyone here this afternoon. Without further ado, I am going to hand over to our first speaker, who is Graham Plant, Deputy Leader of Norfolk County Council, and along with Tech East, New Anglia LEP, the Norfolk Chambers of Commerce, Norfolk County Council are one of our kind of key partners and really have been the driving force behind bringing this conference to you. So without further ado, may I introduce Graham Plant. Graham, if you'd like to activate your video and take yourself off mute. We are ready to hear from you.
Well, good afternoon and thank you for that introduction. And thank you very much for everybody joining us at this exciting recovery conference for food and drink producers. We have worked together with Tech East, the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership, Local Flavours and the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce to bring you Rise today, which demonstrates innovative ideas for growing your business at a time when the world is rapidly changing. The coronavirus has had a huge impact for many, and we express our deepest sympathy to all those who have been affected. We are very aware that the pandemic has presented local businesses with extraordinary challenges, and supporting you to tackle this remains one of our key priorities. The pandemic has also been a propeller for change, driving food and drink producers to think innovatively about the ways it can tackle restrictions and new obstacles. As a result, the interest and implementation of digital solutions has accelerated rapidly. That is why we are delighted to bring you this conference today, which showcases local food and drink producers that have thrived over the last few months by taking an innovative, I like that word, innovative approach to recovery. We will also be showing you the vital power of digital tools, whether for marketing, sales, distribution, or customer insights, and highlighting the support that is available to you. We have curated a lineup of high caliber speakers who will share their valuable insights, expertise, case studies, and plans with you to help even the smallest producer compete in new markets with the right vision, strategy, and tools. Led by Tim Robinson of Tech East, we are delighted to welcome these speakers here today, which includes Stephanie and Matt Brown from Wild Night Distillery, Sam Steggles from the Fielding Cottage, Doug Field from the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership and East of England Co-op, Andrew Fern from the UEA, Valerie Watson-Brown from Local Flavours 21, Edwina Mullins from Social Bee, Matt Anderson from Marketplace AMP, and Emma Taylor from the New Anglia LEP. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We'll also be running a series of polls through the day to get your feedback and to ask about other topics you might be interested in learning more about. This will be used to develop future support. We will also finish with the opportunity for you to ask our panel of experts any questions you might have, and please let us know what you think. And thank you for coming today. I will be leaving shortly. I have another meeting I have to go to, but I hope you have a great day and I'll be able to watch this recorded back at a later date. But have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Graham, for kicking that off with so much warmth and enthusiasm and support. And I think that's what businesses around this part of the world can expect from those who are here to serve them and support them. And I know that you're an old hand at doing these online conferences now, so thank you very much for joining us. And I understand you're a very busy man at the moment, so I wish you a good afternoon, and we'll see you soon, and do watch back afterwards. So thank you, Graham. So I am now delighted to introduce our keynote speaker for this conference, somebody who we are very lucky to have on our patch here in Norfolk. It is Professor Andrew Fern from UEA, the University of East Anglia, to give it its full name. Andrew, good to see you.
And thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I hope everyone else can. So I'm just going to put myself on mute and switch off, and the floor is yours.
Super. Thanks very much, Tim. And you'll be pleased to hear I've got my stop clock and I'm just starting it. So my number one objective is to stay within time. It is a pleasure to join you all. What amazing timing. You can see from my title, I did take an extra handful of happy pills for breakfast this morning, because in the wake of Boris's announcement yesterday and then a further announcement today, quite difficult to focus on the opportunities, to be upbeat, but I'm going to do my best. So there are always opportunities. There's lots of platitudes I could share with you about silver linings out of clouds, all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to try and focus on prospering in times of uncertainty. Have we ever had more uncertainty than we currently have? Opportunities for food producers, but we can't sugarcoat the fact that this is incredibly challenging, and therefore there are some threats, and I'll try and get them out of the way so we can focus on the opportunities as much as we can. So now that's interesting. There we go. So I'm Professor of Value Chain Management at Norwich Business School at UEA. Spent 30 years working up and down the food chain with stakeholders from pretty much everywhere, from input supply all the way through to retail, government agencies, and I spent the last 15, 16 years working on a project called Who Buys My Food, which gives us access to Tesco club card data, which we share for free with SMEs across the country to help them get a better understanding of who's buying their products and how they respond when things change. And that's informed a lot of my research. I'm going to focus on principles, process, share with you some evidence from some recent research we've conducted over the summer on the impact of coronavirus, and then share with you my perceptions about what the future holds and what SMEs in particular need to do to grasp the opportunities. We've got a whole a number of entrepreneurs and innovators to follow who will be sharing with you their practice, and my hope is that what they do and what they've done and how they've achieved success is aligned with many of the principles and processes that I want to share with you. So I'm going to briefly look back at what we've been through in the last 3-4 months, highlight the winners and the losers, and particularly the characteristics of the winners, because we're upbeat on opportunities here. I'm then going to look forward and wrap up with a couple of references to how the UEA is seeking to help businesses across the region. And if I have 30 seconds left, I've got 4 slides, which are my final thoughts. If I run out of time, I can bring them back maybe in the panel discussion. So looking back, we have experienced this black swan event, the systemic shock that many argue they saw coming, but the reality is the majority of us didn't, and it has changed the world forever. And what I want to emphasize here is that there have been and there continues to be winners and losers. Retailers have gained largely at the expense of food service for reasons that we understand, and much of this stuff I'm sure you're familiar with. Independents have gained at the expense of supermarkets. This is a critical point, and arguably only temporarily. And what COVID has done is to accelerate a number of established trends. So retailers were already in the process of rationalizing their products, and that has been accelerated. There had been a demand for increased investment in e-commerce. The lack of investment meant that for the first few weeks of lockdown, we saw the food industry struggle, and SMEs came to our rescue, and subsequently the incumbents have loaded up their armory. They've invested heavily in people and infrastructure to ensure that in the future they'll be better able to support what will be a much larger share of the market. More businesses are losing more money and faster, including those in e-commerce. Consumers want to buy online. Consumers have to buy online if they're not allowed to leave their houses, but not very many people make any money out of it. And that's a real challenge when demand is asking for something that supply can't make money out from. Omni-channel continues to grow, so it's bricks and clicks, not bricks to clicks. I don't see a reason for that to change, and COVID clearly accelerated that process. Convenience and value have for many years been the major consumer drivers and are inevitably going to remain that way, particularly as we grapple with the oncoming recession and lockdown light, or whatever that transpires to be the next wave of the pandemic. But there is a growing interest in community schemes. People are their awareness of the importance of food, where it comes from, how it's produced, and just how fragile the food system is, has definitely been raised by the pandemic. And Gen Y and Gen Z, people that many of us at the wrong end of the age distribution struggle to understand, hold the key to deeper and wider digital integration. The future is digital, whether we like it or not. And Generation Y and Generation Z, the younger consumers, are where we have to pay more attention if we're going to grasp those opportunities. So the winners and losers, how am I going to cover this piece? So 3 bits of research. I'm just going to scratch the surface here. You can imagine I've only got 15 minutes left. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the slides that capture some evidence from our Who Buys My Food project. This is Tesco data. We then commissioned some research from 2 local service providers, Judy Randon at Insight 6 and Carol Raithather, who conducted some retail audits and some focus groups to understand better what was going on in stores and in the minds of shoppers during the pandemic. So this first slide, what on earth is this about? Well, first of all, let me draw to your attention. On the left-hand axis, we've got change in sales. So this is the winners and the losers, pretty much equally distributed, those that gained and those that lost in the 3 months during the crisis. And on the horizontal axis, we've got the number of stores selling. So the winners and losers are both large companies that have lots of stores and small companies, but you will see the mass over here is companies with limited distribution. So we've got a denser mass of losing businesses that are smaller in terms of scale and distribution. Overall, sales declined by 3.5%, but they increased by 2/3 online. However, that was 2/3 up from a very low base. This second slide is designed to, and what both of these slides are trying to do is that actually there's devil in the detail. So here we've got change in online sales on the horizontal axis and change in total sales on the vertical axis. And what we find overall, 42% of companies gained both online and in store. So online sales aren't big enough to transform your business if you're a major player. And actually a successful business is successful because they're good at both, supporting this notion of omni-channel. That's even higher for dairy and meat. That 42% is in total, and I just chose a couple of subcategories to highlight the differences. And on the left-hand side, we've got 32% failed, declined, both in online and in total. That was less in terms of dairy and meat. And this little group over here, these are people that have lost overall but gained online. And so emphasizing the importance of not giving up on and losing sight of bricks and mortar, even though for a significant period during the lockdown we had no option. Characteristics of the products behind those charts. So winning brands, the ones that are the dots that are appearing on the right hand side, the ones that are growing the fastest over this period, are relevant and distinctive. So wherever they're made available, people want to buy them. They stand out from the crowd. They were able to retain and in some cases increase their distribution with their retail customers when their competitors were being relegated or delisted. And that outcome was engineered not by chance, by targeted allocation of resources to ensure that customers, retail buyers and consumers, the final consumer, were only ever given reasons to reward them and never given an opportunity to switch. I'm going to come back to the importance of that shortly. In terms of retail, the retail distributors and their performance, so this is a couple of summary slides from the mystery shopping trips that we did. So we gave people some money to go and buy some ingredients for a typical meal, and they rated those services on a number of KPIs. And actually what they discovered was across the country, across distribution channels, the experience was pretty good. And the one standout there was that the extent to which retailers have struggled to maintain the presentation in their stores during the pandemic. But what is striking is this, some of you may be familiar with something called the Net Promoter Score. So how likely are you to recommend that retailer to your friends, the things that really matter? And this is one for Doug, because the ones that come out with the highest Net Promoter Score are the regional independent supermarkets, already an element of focus, focusing on their region, engaging with their local and regional customers. And here we start to see some of the vulnerabilities in the SMEs. So much lower scores for direct from the farm to consumers, farm shops, haphazard, poorly organized, poor service, and the newbies, the aggregators that are coming in to bring the producers to the consumers. So the incumbents, the multiple supermarkets, plenty of room for improvement. Regional supermarkets doing really, really well, and particularly vulnerable, those independent retailers, specialist offers. As far as consumers are concerned, why do they shop? This is Gen Y, Gen Z. Why do they shop at independent stores? They trust the ethical and environmental credentials of the supplier. They look for something special, quality taste, the range is exciting, local or domestic produce in abundance, and they feel good about supporting the local community. They want to reduce waste and packaging, less concerned about price and promotions and convenience. They will sacrifice some of that, but likely that's going to change in the next 6 months. Whereas on the supermarkets, look at the top of the list is price, promotions and convenience. I buy online from supermarkets because they're cheap and they're convenient. and I don't shop on from supermarkets if I expect to buy products that are ethically produced or pay particular attention to animal welfare. Click. There we go. So, looking forward, the focus is shifting from the pandemic to the recession, the ripple effect. Arguably, that's just changed with the recent announcement, but I think we're struggling, all of us, with how much attention should be paid to one or the other. I still think the focus is shifting more and more towards the economic impact of this, which is why behaviour is the way it is, and why we're now seeing a return to some austerity with respect to the lockdown. So testing the result of those switched from mainstream brands, mainstream retail to differentiated products. More downward pressure on prices and margins is inevitable as Tesco and Amazon slug it out for dominance in the marketplace. Announcements every day that we won't be beaten on price, and they'll expect most of that to come from suppliers. So we can't ignore the fact that was already happening, and it's just going to be accelerated and make life incredibly difficult for suppliers. Understanding the detail of who's buying what, when and how they respond to changes in the offer is a critical success factor. So I'm now moving into what it's going to take to capture some of the opportunities moving forward. Retention. Many of you will have seen an increase in sales. Many independent retailers saw an increase in sales and already will have seen some of those increases starting to break away. So retention is the fundamental challenge. Consumers are willing to support small local food producers, and a subset of those who've converted are willing to pay more, but you've got to keep telling them why. You can't give them the opportunity to transgress. Collaboration, I believe, is so misunderstood and so underutilized amongst small food producers, not just farmers, but all along the supply chain, to provide a more convenient and engaging shopping experience, reduce the costs of distribution, invest in customer loyalty, and to get into the data. The devil is in the detail. You've got to know who's buying your product, where it's doing well, why it's doing well, so you can target more of the people that might be inclined to repeat purchase. The window of opportunity is closing fast, and the major players are much better equipped to deal with what I'm referring to as lockdown light. So relevance is everything. Your customer, which still for many of us, if not most of us actually, is a retailer, more pressure than ever. They want their suppliers to understand Tesco wants suppliers to them to understand what the Tesco shopper is looking for. And the consumers who shop in Tesco want the things that are relevant to them. So customized market intelligence. You need to get data and insight from specific distribution channels and specific customers, including the ones that come direct to you. Who are these people? And SMEs are particularly vulnerable, limited resources, and often, it has to be said, lack strategic orientation. The more limited the resources are, the more important it is to target them. You can't afford to hit and hope. As not a very good golfer, you can't afford to just hope and pray that things will get better. You've got to embrace the opportunity. People will buy your products. Most SMEs don't need huge market shares. They don't need millions of people. They've just got to target the right areas. Less is more. So retailers are quite clear. They want fewer products, they want fewer suppliers, and they have got less people to deal with, the suppliers and the customers. Rationalize, rationalize, rationalize. Suppliers, are you caught in the headlights, or are you lost in the fog? Or do you have a very clear vision of the future? If ever there is a need for strategic clarity, it is now. Strategy is everything. At least there has to be one. So data, technology is a means to an end. Your journey begins with strategy. And so many SMEs, in my experience over 30 years working with hundreds of SMEs across the country and indeed the world, they don't have a piece of paper or a file that's got strategic plan written on it. Strategic plans can change, but they must exist because they drive the way you allocate resources. So, and the ones that really matter are marketing orientation. There's a conflict that most SMEs, in my experience, grapple with, which is short-term sales orientation versus longer-term marketing orientation, Sales orientation is about survival. So clearly we have to survive, but you can't just focus on short-term sales and not be thinking about the longer term. Otherwise, the longer term actually won't come. So am I fit for purpose in the long term? Not can I simply survive. I don't think we really want him defending our shores, do you? So decades of research has provided us with evidence that the stronger the market orientation, the more aware you are of your customers, your consumers, and your competitors. The closer the fit with whoever your key customers are, you better have some key ones, not just hundreds of people that you don't know where they are or what they want, but take your products from you, the better the performance. So they're more satisfied, sales grow faster, profitability is greater, and there's an absence of delisted products. Sales orientation statistically has no impact on performance, which is the focus on short-term distribution. For SMEs, wholesalers are often seen as the saviors. In my opinion, they're often the single biggest problem because they act as the barrier between the producer and the customer. In my experience, the vast majority of wholesale distributors will not share with producers who their customers are, where their sales are the greatest, for fear that those SMEs are going to bypass them and go direct to the customer. So you're being starved of critical data if you rely solely on wholesale distributors who've got far too many customers and far too many suppliers to really understand or get to grips with who is buying what and why. It also ends up with a lack of commitment, a lack of investment in market intelligence, which weakens the relationship with the buyer. So when companies say to me, the way to protect ourselves is to have lots of customers, my simple answer is you are in danger of being irrelevant to lots of people because you don't have the resources to focus on them all. So focus, focus, focus is a key message that I'm sharing with you. And just because you've been trading for a long time with somebody doesn't mean to say you're going to stay in business. And I'm conscious that we're coming to the end. So what does it take? 3 case studies that will be made available to you from the RISE website support this kind of framework that I've used for many, many years. And you'll see we've got a $1 billion global brand in Zespri. They're the biggest exporter of kiwi fruit in the world, turning over 30 billion, I think it was, in last year. Manbaloo, 200 million Australian dollars exporting mangoes, and Dingley Dell, exporting their value-added pork products globally, except that they're not anymore. So grew their business with huge success up until February, and then what did they do? Well, they didn't just stop because they had a strategy which was already well in place, which was to go into partnership to launch an e-commerce platform with their charcuterie range. 3 great case studies that it explains to you how that model that you can see on the page works. And I would urge you to read those case studies at your leisure after this event. They're written for practitioners, they're not academics. Customer and consumer insight, a genuine, unique selling proposition, attention to detail, passion for perfection, collaboration at the heart of the business. Dingley Dell, a small pig producer on our doorstep, does this par excellence and in just the same way as Zespri, a global player, does across the world. How can we help at UEA? My last slide, or skip my final thoughts. Please reach out to Liz Davis, who's leading up our Gateway to Growth program, which will help you engage with our incredible graduates and provides an internship facility that is free of charge for a short period of time. And Kenny Lang, who runs the ERA project, which also will help you to apply for grants for internships and innovation vouchers to see your way through the pandemic and see your way towards a sustainable future. My final thoughts I'll keep because I realise now I'm out of time. Tim.
Thank you, Andrew. Fantastic talk. There was a whole ton of content there, which we will be sharing after the event. I know there was a lot of insight there. And also importantly, I know you, as you came to the end, you talked about some of the ways in which UEA, as a great university, we're very lucky to have UEA obviously on our patch, can help directly around innovation. So thank you, Andrew. Wow, what a way to start. So we're now kind of getting into, I think, what I think of as sort of heart and soul of case studies and examples from food and drink producing businesses here in the east of England, we have some wonderful speakers for you, and I'm very pleased to introduce as the first of the sort of food and drink producer speakers, Sam Steggles. And Sam is Managing Director at Fielding Cottage. Many of you may know of Fielding Cottage. For those of you who don't, I'm going to ask Sam to kind of properly introduce himself and tell you a little bit about Fielding Cottage, and also about the journey that Fielding Cottage has been on over the last few months. So Sam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tim. So yeah, a little bit about Fielding Cottage and what it's all about, where it started. We started 10 years ago when we bought 10 goats, and it's snowballed from there, really. So we have a cheese making business. Prior to COVID, we were doing about 1.5 tons of cheese a week, which we supplied to airlines, national pub chains, supermarkets, on the deli counters there, local pubs, hotels, restaurants, whoever wanted it, really. We also have some holiday cottages that we rent out, and a very small self-service goat shed, which people can come in and buy their cheese, they can come and buy their honeys, all the local products. So that's sort of where it was up until 6 months ago. The 8th of March, I left London on a plane to Australia to study my Nuffield Farming Scholarship, actually looking into how businesses, in particular food businesses, adapt and change in tricky economic and political times. So I'm actually living and breathing my subject at the moment. And I was there a week and arrived home the following Sunday lunchtime on the 15th of March, having had 90% of our cheese business disappear pretty much overnight. The planes were grounded, the deli counters were closed, our holiday cottage business dried up. Boris put paid to that. Lockdown happened. Everyone was staying at home. The little goat shed, the self-service farm shop, then suddenly got busy. So it sort of changed what we were doing within our business when COVID hit. People talk about pivoting and adapting and everything, and for me, it was more about survival, really. I had a group of people that were working with me here in the business, and I was responsible for their salaries. I didn't wish to make anyone redundant. I didn't wish to furlough anybody. They've all got children, families to support, bills to pay, as have the rest of us. So we took the decision to throw ourselves into it. And as people kept coming in to see us, the customers were asking for more and more. People asked for bread, they asked for different cheeses, they asked for vegetables, meats, all sorts. So we then set about using our contacts and local food producers such as Swannington Farm to Fork and Braised Cottage Pork Pies, and people who we knew from our time on the farmers markets, and started stocking their products. At that point, we then very quickly realized that we were getting busier, and our little shop, which is the size of a 4-berth caravan, wasn't really going to suffice. So we then had about a 3,000 square foot barn that we weren't using, that our cheese factory is going to move into. So we swept it out one morning and built a farm shop on 7 o'clock on Friday morning, and then it's grown from there. This morning we now have in excess of 500 different product lines in there, and I'm pleased to say that the majority of them are all from local food producers or manufacturers. Some are from further afield because we can't get it locally. So we've adapted that there. We've supported the local businesses with that as much as we as much as we can. And what does the future look like for that side of our business is that we're now building, we're about 4 to 6 weeks off going live into a new 8,000 square foot building that is being built on site. It's a bigger goat shed. It will be a fully functioning farm shop with a cheese cave, a cafe, a restaurant. We can then hold a lot more product in there. We can support a lot more local businesses. We've taken on more staff to help us with this, which is excellent, really. At the same time, our cheese business has came back. We're now doing about a ton of cheese a week at the moment. The holiday cottages are full, which is great. But we've had to adapt, and then whilst we've been doing all that, we actually bought another business as well a month ago. So it's been very busy. But I think the biggest things that I've actually learned in all of this is to give people what they want. If people are coming to us and asking us for a product, then I'll go out and I'll try and find it. So when there was a shortage of toilet rolls, we had a container full of toilet rolls. When nobody could get flour, we were doing about a ton of flour a week. When nobody could get compost, we had an Arctic load of compost come in so that people could still garden. If somebody wanted it, we managed to go and find it, which was quite good. But at the same time, we weren't trying to make a quick pound. We were here for the long term. We weren't taking the mickey out of the people. We kept our pricing sensible so that we could keep those customers coming back. We introduced a customer loyalty card, so people can come and get their stamps on their cards, and then once they've filled that up, we'll give them a discount off their next shop. We give people free coffee. We gave away 5,000 tulips to our customers, and we took 2,500 up to the hospital. So we're trying to put some stuff back as well, and really give the customers an experience that maybe they had when they were younger, a more personal experience, something that they've bought into, and getting them to give us suggestions on what they would like, and then actually acting on them and not letting it fall onto deaf ears. But all of this wouldn't have been possible without the help and support of the people that work with me here, the team of guys that I've got that are just excellent. And I can't emphasize enough that I think I'm just the front man with the ideas, and it's the other guys that come in behind me and make things happen, do the day-to-day stuff. And I think that's really important, because without the right team and the right team of people around me, none of this would have happened. And I think that's the same with anything that you're doing, any business that you're in. It's really important to have those people there. What else is happening in the future? I think we're going to keep going with what we're doing. What advice can I offer to others? Really, the biggest thing is to just keep on believing and don't give up, because it really was a case of do or die for us. You know, we couldn't have survived with the loss of our cheese business and our cottage income. So we've had to adapt, we've had to pivot, we've had to survive, and I'm pleased to say that we've done it. But it's still down to us to keep moving forward and finding those new products, interacting with our customers, as Andrew said, and understanding what they want and actually giving them what they want. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions at the end, so I'll keep to my time slot, which I think I'm pretty much bang on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. I mean, you know, 4-bedroom caravan to 500 plus product line to bigger expansion plan sounds like, you know, you're going in the right direction. And what you just said about, I'm sure we're going to come back to pivots, adapting, and opportunity, you know, only possible if you've got the right team around you. And this is not a one-man enterprise. This is a, you know, a business, a family business, and a growing business. So thank you, Sam, for sharing your insights with us. And we'll see you later for the panel. So thanks again. So next up, from goats to vodka and beyond, we have Steph and Matt Brown from Wild Night Distillery. Now, Wild Night Distillery has caught my attention over the last few months, partly because we've been putting this conference together, but I think partly also because in the world of, particularly around, I think, vodka, gin, branded products, differentiated products, perhaps there's a more level playing field now for new entrants into the market than in some other areas. And we've got some great product offerings in Norfolk and Suffolk, and Wild Night is one of those leading the charge. So I'm very pleased to introduce to you Steph and Matt Brown, who are going to do this as a double act. So you can only see the name Steph Brown against them, but there are two of you. Hello, good afternoon, welcome. Okay, I'm going to shut up now, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this virtual conference of food and drink producers. Thank you also to Clark Willis for inviting us, to Jen Fuller of Norfolk County Council for organising, and to Tech East for enabling this to happen. Right, here we go. So
we have got some slides which we can share, which I could just give you a bit of something pictorial perhaps as we go through. So hopefully you can see those slides. So as Sam was saying, back in March, I think it was, I can't remember the date exactly, to be honest, it was about the 20th, 21st. Lockdown happened, and for us, it was a big, right, all our trade customers basically have shut. I mean, our business is, we sell premium spirits, vodka, gin, liqueurs, and our customers are on trades at pubs, bars and restaurants, and retailers, mostly independent retailers of one sort or another. And basically, they all stopped because pubs, bars and restaurants shut, and the retailers that were left essentially were focused more on selling the essentials, vegetables, milk, toilet roll, all that kind of stuff. So the spirit sales really did stop, and to be honest, at the moment, in retail, they haven't really come back with any sort of significance yet. So we had a big moment of thinking, right, what do we do now? And the other factor, of course, was typically from June onwards, we have a whole series of events where we get to meet our customers sort of face to face. We start with the Norfolk show, then we go into the autumn events and up to the Christmas events, and we do a lot of trade at those events. And typically that's it. Last year was about 25% of our business, so it was significant for us. And one by one, those events started cancelling. So we knew that that revenue wasn't going to be there for us as well going forward. So essentially, we had a website running already. We've been trading for about 5 years. The website sort of trickled along in the background. We haven't really paid any sort of emphasis, put any attention to it, but it got us to rethink it. So we had to find ways, essentially, we could get closer to our customer, and that was essentially what it was. What was the challenge for us. And I'll come on to a little bit more about what that was, what we did in a minute. So lockdown happened, didn't it? Yeah, and this was the first thing that happened. Hand sanitizer the world went crazy for hand sanitizer.
And we started working with the UEA at the very beginning of the pandemic. So in early March, we answered the call for help from the university. They requested help with the production of hand sanitizer for the local authority and the NHS. And we were able to supply all the alcohol we had to start off production, and also to loan them some bottling equipment. When production had reduced, we received a lovely message from the UEA to thank us for our help, which was really nice. And then they kindly asked if there was anything that they could do to help us, which was amazing. We jumped at the chance to work with them to focus on the online customer journey through our website and making the ordering process as enjoyable and clear as possible for consumers.
Yeah, we looked at the hand sanitizer thing, you know, right in the early days. The WHO, the World Health Organization, published a recipe. We had one of the key ingredients, but we decided that whilst we could do so much, we really probably were too small to make any real dent. So the UEA had staff, premises, lots of white coats and goggles. They had all of the gear basically to make it. So by providing them, getting started with the hand sanitizer, which we did with the alcohol really quickly, but I suppose probably more importantly, providing some of our bottling equipment to enable them to bottle it was probably the most useful thing we can do. So once that was done, that kind of enabled us then to start think back into our business again. And we were thinking, okay, how do we reach our customer? We're not reaching them in store. We don't have a physical store. So what was left for us was online. And the other thing we looked at as well is because veg box deliveries became really popular about this time, because people couldn't go to the supermarket and get everything because they were running out. So we also partnered up with a couple of veg box delivery businesses, one locally, one in London. And so that was another way of essentially bridging the gap between us and the end customer. So we set that up, and that we did what we could with that. But really what we spend our time is focusing online. So we rebuilt our website. We've actually done it twice in this period. We rebuilt it back in March. I think by early April we had a new website running, and we just spent some time looking at it to just how we can make it more, I suppose, how people could trust us a bit more online, how they could, I mean, one of the things with our sort of product is that people like to taste it before they buy, and you can't do that online. So what we have to do is we have more tasting notes, more description. We focus on good imagery
and reviews.
Reviews.
People really enjoy the reviews, and it is important for us. So people, whilst they can't taste it, they can appreciate what other people are saying.
But because the only benchmark we had at the time was the historical trading, and in the year before, so 2019, online sales for us were about 3% of our business, so it was tiny. That's grown quite significantly since that time. But so we couldn't really, we wanted to be able to benchmark any investment we put into online with pound return per pound spent. And so what we did is actually used our event data. So the physical events we've been doing over the past 4 years or so. We looked at how much these events cost us, what the revenue, what the profit was on every one of the events. And so that enabled us to set a bit of a benchmark to enable us, okay, well, if we were to spend money and invest in online, whether it's through advertising or making sure or buying something that's going to help us, the website to work better, we had some means of benchmarking, okay, are we doing better than we would at an event? So that was one of the first things we did. But also initially, I suppose we're in sort of, we weren't thinking clearly mode, I think, in the early days. So one of the things we tried very early on was, right, we need to offer free delivery. And we offered free delivery on every bottle. And we gained a few orders that way, but it killed our margin. So we stopped that quite quickly. And then what we did is we kind of had the reverse thinking. We started to think, okay, well, how can we increase our order value with the customers? How can we encourage customers to buy more? So instead of one bottle, they could buy 2 or 3. It costs us the same to ship 1 bottle as it does 2 or 3. So maybe we can offer some to the customer, and at the same time, we improve in our margin as well. So we looked at our products range that we have. It's not that big. We've got 6 basic products, but we started creating collections out of them. And by enabling people to buy 3 for less than they could individually, so a little bit of a discount, but we don't discount generally, but it's just creating a bit more value for the customer. We started to find that we could increase our order value. So that's kind of looking at our product offer. And then one of the things which we were really concerned with over the summer was the speed of the new site on mobile. Mobile is really key. And I think if anybody looks at their web stats to see how many visitors are viewing the website on mobile, it can be anywhere from 30, 40, 50 to 60%, depends on the site. So we we believed our website wasn't good enough, it wasn't fast enough on mobile. So back in August, with the hopefully busy Christmas period coming up, we started again. And it took us 4 days, which isn't really long, I suppose, to rebuild the website from scratch. But we, using the Shopify site that we had already, but we completely reskinned it with a new theme, which was much faster, much more mobile enabled. We stripped every image out of the website, and every single one of those we optimized, so that squeezed every last bite of size out of the middle, so that basically, other than not having any images on our website, it's probably about as fast as it can be now. Yeah, so that was really key, and we're seeing the benefit of that now. So the new site was live from about 28th of August, and we're seeing increased conversion, particularly on mobile now. So hopefully that's set a platform for the future. And the other thing, of course, is our marketing, wasn't it? Like email marketing, we weren't treating that seriously before.
We were doing perhaps one email every 6 months, and we had one customer who actually thought, they wondered if we were still going because we didn't keep in touch with them via email. So now we do 2 email newsletters a month, and we've got into doing that regularly. Yeah,
so consistency of communication was really key. Awards have helped us as well.
Awards have been brilliant. We recently entered the IWSC, the International Wine and Spirits Competition, and we were really chuffed to win a prestigious silver medal for our Wild Night Espresso Martini. And this followed on from winning the World Vodka Award for the best British varietal vodka for Wild Night. So both awards gave us lots to talk about with the press and, of course, customers. And it was brilliant to share some good news during uncertain times.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. I mean, it's great to have the endorsement. It's great to have the accolade. It's not just these aren't the awards aren't from the local horticultural show, although there's nothing wrong with that. But they have some standing in the industry, and so it's great to have that. But I think it was the positivity that, and talking to people generally, they love the fact there's a positive story coming out when we're drowned by negativity at the moment. I suppose the other thing actually online has really helped us is helped us break out of Norfolk and East Anglia. I mean, we sell into London and different places around the UK, but we can now, we're selling our product to all parts of the UK now. And in fact, one of the other positives during this particular time is we actually completed our first export order. So we shipped, back in August, we shipped some gin to Canada to be sold through the liquor board out there. So there's been a lot of positives, haven't there, over the last few months. Yeah. It's tough, but a lot of positives. So looking forward, just to sort of wrap up, we are, we think we created a good foundation with the website, but we're not resting on our laurels with that. We're constantly looking for new ways in which we can improve upon that. I think one of the challenges for us is to convey the message to somebody who we can't meet in person of a product that they're going to taste. So we're kind of looking at new ways in which we can do that to increase people's confidence that actually when they're going to buy something, they're going to enjoy it. Reviews help that. We're continuing new product development. We've been doing that behind the scenes all through this. And also we have finally, so we don't have a physical presence, people can come and see us yet, but autumn 2022, we should have a place set up. It's a little bit further in the future, but we're working towards 2022 where we'll have a distillery set up where people will be able to come and see us. And
because we're asked probably at least once a week, can we come and tour your distillery? Unfortunately, we're not ready for that yet, but we will be, as Matt says. By 2022, we'll have a presence where people can come in and have an experience.
So hopefully by then we'll be really good at the online stuff, and so we can start getting good at the physical in-person stuff, really, I guess. That's so a lot of challenges. We've done a lot. We've tried a lot of things that haven't worked, like the free delivery didn't work for us. On the how do you stop share? Stop share with that, right? And I guess but we're very optimistic. We're really optimistic. In fact, more optimistic now, despite what has been a really tough year, sort of business-wise, it is for everybody. But we're really optimistic about the future going forward, and we think that we think we're putting in place the groundwork, which is really going to help us develop. business going forward.
Yeah. So can we say thanks everyone for listening, and we look forward to taking your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt and Steph. Ooh, your enthusiasm is palpable, and I think when you say you're optimistic, you sound like you really mean it. So we appreciate that, and there was a lot of stuff in your presentation that I'd like to loop back to when maybe it comes to the panel.
Do you know what though, Tim? We are human. We do have those moments of doubt, but you've got to put them behind you. You just got to. The way we do that is right. We just look forward. You know, we look forward into a place in the future, and that's how we sort of get through our thing. But no, we are optimistic.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a mindset that kind of obviously helps at times like this, and I think you've been very honest about maybe things that didn't work out as well. The fact that you've rebuilt your website twice is interesting, and I think just goes to show that the pace, especially with digital, you know, the pace is quite quick, but you can do things. You can turn on a dime if you've got that agility, even if you're a larger business. But thank you both very much for sharing the Wild Night story, and we'll be coming back to Steph and Matt really in not very long at all. But at this point, I am very, very pleased to introduce our next speaker, who's hopefully someone from whom we can all learn, including myself. Digital is important, social media and marketing and engaging with your audience, and I think trying to grow the community around your brand, your product, and who you are and what you do, you know, has been a lifesaver for, I think, a lot of businesses. We're all living more of our lives digitally, but there are ways of doing it well and there are ways of doing it less well. And I'm delighted to introduce Edwina Mullins from Social Bee, who I believe will be able to give us some pointers, if nothing else, some pointers today. And I'm sure that there's much more to this subject than you'll be able to get across in the next 15 minutes, Edwina, and I know there is. But the floor is yours to give us the kind of 101 on building community through social. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, 15, 20 minutes doesn't give a lot of time, but I'll give you a quick run through of the things that you need to think about. I'm just going to share my screen now. Can you see my screen and my PowerPoint?
I can see that.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so using social media to build a community and to help build your business is incredibly key. One of the reasons for this is instead of many businesses over the last couple of months have been trying to do single sales. And if you're on social media at the moment, you may have seen lots of ads of sort of 1 unit purchases. And that's great for 1 unit purchases. But actually, if you want longevity of your brand, you need to be thinking about a community that's going to keep coming back. You need to get those loyal customers that are going to keep getting repeat visits, that are going to keep repeating, their visits to your website or to your outlets, wherever your retail outlets are. And in order to get that repeat visit and those loyalties, you need to be memorable. And being part of a community and to be talking online as part of that community is a great way of being memorable. Now, I'm Edwina Mullins. I've been training people for probably 6 or 7 years on social media. I cover the East Anglia region down to London, and I focus mainly on food, agriculture, and as I'm based in Cambridge, technology, because you can't get away from it. So if you've got any questions about your specific industry or your sector within the food and drink industry, please feel free to let me know, Q&As or panel at the end. Happy to answer specific questions. So let me just move on to audience versus community. A few people have asked me what the difference is between an audience and a community. Well, an audience, many businesses know, is your stakeholders. You've got your suppliers, you've got your customers. There are many people that take up your audience, but your audience is who you talk to. The community is who talks to you. So the difference is that you don't want to talk at people. You want people to be having that two-way conversation with you, because that's what's interesting. And that's what starts to build up trust, as our previous speaker said, because trust is where you get that loyalty. So I'm going to give you a food-based analogy now. you're at a dinner party. Oh, I'm at a dinner party with my esteemed chair, Tim, and I've not met Tim before. And Tim starts talking at me. He's sitting next to me, and he tells me all about himself. He tells me what he does, very interesting things, and then that's the end of the dinner party. So I come away from that dinner party thinking, oh, Tim's an interesting person. He's done a lot. Second scenario, we're at the dinner party, sitting next to Tim, and he asks me questions all the time. He asks me questions about who I am, what I'm about, what I work, my family, etc. And I come away thinking Tim is a really interesting person and I like him. And in that second scenario, I have a better opinion of Tim because he's asked me questions, even though I know less about him. So that's a very silly way that humans work, in that if you ask questions and you seem interested in the other person, people think you are more interesting. So if you take that real world analogy and apply that online, think about what your audience is interested in, not necessarily what you want to tell them. So the interesting thing about an audience is if you think audience, you're thinking about what you need to tell people. Think community, you're thinking about what your community wants to hear. And your content will get far more interesting if you think about that way of communicating. Now, if you haven't been a part of an online community yet, don't worry, there are existing communities out there that you can be a participant of while you get used to talking and building up your own community online. So here are a couple of examples here, and luckily the food industry and drink industry is so active online, you will find your sector somewhere. So it's British Food Fortnight, and we've got a couple of examples here. Wye Valley English blueberries, hand-picked, chilled, packed on the same day. And then you'll see some hashtags underneath. It's an example of some keywords that your community are using. And then over on the other side, you've got salsa food. Congratulations to all of our members who have worked so hard to gain their salsa certificate over the last few months. These are kind of examples of things that are supportive of the community. They're selling themselves, obviously, a little bit, but they're trying to be part of a wider community. So take some inspiration from what posts are already out there when you get started. So in the online world, it's incredibly noisy, and we're all aware of how much noise is there, and there's just constant information coming through. So you need to think about how to be visual to stand out from the crowd. So think about what your brand is. Make sure you reflect your own brand values. Don't look at somebody else and think, oh, I've got to be like them. You've got to do what suits you. So I've got an example here from Mr. Hughes Oils. You may know him. He's a rapeseed oil producer in the East Anglia, and his Instagram page is here. You can see he's got a mix here of showing off his products, showing his farm, which is the important thing about Mr. Hugh, as he is a farmer and he's out in the fields every day. And then you've got some of his family aspects as well. You've got his cat, you've got the daddy birthday cake, and tired son, I think it is, in there. And what he's doing is he's humanizing his brand. He's saying, if you want to buy into my brand, you are buying who I am and my values, and my values the same as your values. And that's when you start getting loyalty, because you can go into Tesco's and you could pick any oil. And many people don't really care whether it's rapeseed oil or olive oil or sesame seed oil, apart from maybe the price. But if they're going through the shelves in Tesco's, and luckily he's now in Tesco's, people might stop at Mr. Hugh's oil and remember the conversation that they've had with Mr. Hugh about the oilseed rape season this year on Instagram, and that's their purchase decision made. So it seems quite indirect, but it's a very valuable way of portraying your business by being very visual and showing really what you're about. So what's interesting to you is not necessarily interesting to your audience, and some things that you think are quite boring are very interesting to other people. So Mr. Hugh here thought that him being in a farm and going up and down the tram lines every day was incredibly boring and no one would be interested. But actually, if you are an office worker in London and you are completely removed from the food production process, actually seeing the person that's creating your oil is a really nice experience. It's an online experience. So what's dull for Mr. Hugh is incredibly interesting for the audience. So Mr. Hugh's oils had to think about how to readjust what they were going to be talking about online to make sure that they were creating this community. And now they've got, you can see here, this was a couple of days ago, they've got 2,900 people following. They're in Tesco's as of, I think a couple of months ago, so 6 months ago maybe. So they're doing pretty well. And I have a look and see whether you can be inspirational, whether you can go behind the scenes and show the humans of the brand, because that's what sets you apart. With the food and drink industry, everyone is very emotional. You have an emotional connection to the food that you eat. And if you can find a way of connecting food with the emotions of your brand, then you've got a really winning formula. So I would implore you to be authentic. There are definitely some people out there, some companies out there that are far too corporate. They feel like they need to be safe. And safe is what the blue chip companies need to do. It's what the multinational corporations need to do. But as an independent food or drink producer, you've got the opportunity to show that you are different. And people are buying into you as a brand because you may be independent, you may have sustainability policies, you may support the local population in a particular way. There is something that makes you unique and different from one of those larger organizations. So be authentic to who you are. Feel like if you do have an extraordinary personality within the organization, let them come out and shine. If you've got an office dog, show them off. Whatever it is, be authentic so people can get used to who you are. And people love those humans behind the brand, so really do bring them to the fore. Here's an example from Luxardo, which is a large brand. However, they're still family owned, so I feel like I can still use them as an example. So this is Gareth Franklin. He is the brand ambassador for Luxardo. And what he's done is he has created an online presence which is supportive of the hospitality industry and the cocktail industry and bar industry. And especially over the last 4 or 5 months, he's really connected with different podcasts, with different Facebook groups and other outlets to support the Hospitality Action charity and other things. So he creates videos, he creates various different pieces of information around his industry, and by default he's supporting Luxardo brand and bringing up the reputation of that brand by default. So the example on the left, Samosa Chat, there really is a topic on anything to do with food online. So I didn't know about Samosa Chat before a couple of weeks ago, but there is Samosa Chat, and you can see here this is Gareth being very open. I'm not doing technology, but I'm going to play around with a video and create some content around samosas, and it's in conjunction with other people. So he's working with the Urban Alchemist Detective and some other hospitality brands that are relevant to his sector. So have a think about who's relevant to your sector, and can you start doing some collaborations with people in a more proactive way, and that will start the ball rolling. So you can see on the other example I've got on the right hand side of this deck is tomorrow night I'll be rocking the mezzanine bar at the Stratford Hotel from 8:30 with all the delicious Luxardo cocktails. And this is a video where he's making a cocktail with the barman, and people are asking questions about, nice, what brand are the sprays are you guys wearing? And he's continuing the conversation and being part of a community. And he's invited, as a result of doing some of this work, he's invited to talk at various hospitality conferences. He's been invited to be on various speaking slots for on the TV and other bits and pieces. So he's really bringing up his own portfolio and that of Luxardo, and that's international now. He's seen in Singapore and Brazil and other places. So do check him out as a good example. If you've got a brand ambassador, you've got a human behind the brand who's willing to get out there and talk, this is the kind of thing that you can do. So find your niche. I alluded to this earlier, but find what's special to you. Just because G from the previous slide was really, really good at doing what he does, that doesn't mean you have to do that exact same thing. Think what makes you passionate and brilliant about what you do as a food and drink producer, and try and communicate that online. So whether it's the fact that you use organic ingredients, or you're an independent producer, or that your bottles are particularly beautiful, whatever it is that makes you unique and part of a niche, make sure that you're communicating that. Now we're all online, it's harder, as the previous speaker said, it's harder to show off your products because people aren't smelling it or drinking it or whatever it is to get a feel for what your brand is. So you really need to be clear about what your brand is and communicate it clearly. So find your niche and be very, very specific about what makes you, you. And if you need some inspiration, this is an example from Pinterest. Have a couple of searches on various different channels. This is Pinterest, but you can do it on Instagram or Twitter. I put in Norfolk Food here, and you can get some examples of what other people are talking about. You've got a food hut, and they're part of the best brunch in North Norfolk, part of East Life. So is that something that you could do? Could you show, could you collaborate with East Life or another organisation and get some images around that, create some content? So use what's already out there to give you inspiration. And that kind of thing can help you get your brand to come to life. So engage with your customers. If somebody contacts you, make sure that you contact them back and you have that two-way dialogue, because that's what social is all about. If you're not being social and doing that two-way conversation, you might as well be advertising, and you don't want to necessarily advertise when you're trying to be on a social platform. It's not what people expect from your brand. So I've got some top tips for you. Make sure that you're consistent. What can your community expect from you? If you're a busy producer and you don't have time to be on social very often, maybe try once a week to put something that's interesting up, and make sure it's always once a week. The worst thing that you can do is get really enthusiastic, do loads of content for a couple of weeks and be posting all over the place and using hashtag food life or whatever, and then you drop off because you've burnt out and you don't have time. You need to build up your community over time to make sure you've got that loyal community. So that consistency is really key for people to understand what they can expect from you. Inject your personality into your content. Definitely be true to who you are. Don't pretend to be someone else. I think there are plenty of brands out there that we've seen that have tried to be something, tried to be too cool or tried to be a bit jazzier than they are, and they've fallen flat eventually, and people have said, we can see that that's not you. So be true to who you are, and then the right people will find you. Because online, it's about building up communities. It's all about finding the people that have similarities to you and your brand. Because there are so many people out there, there's no point trying to convert people that are not interested in independent producing or organic or whatever it is that makes you you. You've got to find the people that are interested, because they're the ones that you want to convert. Don't bother with all of the others. That's too hard. There are enough people that will be interested. So be true to you and you'll get the right customers. Create your own community. Think about what's important, and think about what's important to your customers, and start talking to people proactively. Leverage your wider community, like the slide that I showed earlier about Buy British Food and National Food Week. There are big communities out there that you can leverage. Add value. What is your why? Why are you online? If you're just producing content for the sake of it, people are going to switch off. If they feel like they're getting something that's interesting, then they'll keep listening. So an example of that is if you post a picture which is maybe of a meal. So this is, if you do food boxes, for instance, this is a picture of a rack of lamb. Isn't this nice? What can you do that adds value though? Maybe it could be you or a chef that you know that does a short video of how to produce a rack of lamb. What it's doing is you're asking someone to consume your content, and the exchange is that they receive something of value. So you're asking them to consume a bit of your content. In this scenario, they're learning how to make a spiced rack of lamb or whatever it is. So have a think about how you can add value and what's your why. Why should people follow you? Well, they're going to get something that's interesting out of it. Make sure you post regular content. If you switch off and don't do anything for a couple of weeks, you've lost your community. So I would encourage you, if you have a shortness of time, concentrate on 1 or 2 channels and build up your strong communities there. If you spread yourself too thin, you won't be able to post regularly on all of those channels. Be responsive. You absolutely don't want to get the ball rolling and then nobody responds. And that's how people will feel if you don't respond to them. So it's a bit like going up to someone in the street and saying, "Hi, how are you?" and they just look at you blankly. It's awkward, and customers will feel the same way if it's online. So make sure you are responsive, and unfortunately that does involve you checking to make sure that people are commenting and responding to your posts. So I would encourage you to keep a smartphone with you, and then you can check at sort of beginning of the day, lunchtime, whenever is possible for you or your staff, to make sure that you're being responsive, because you don't want to miss that one post, which is, "I love your product, could I buy 100 for my staff at Christmas?" And they've sent it to a couple of companies and you weren't the first one to respond, so you missed that sale. And my last tip is mean it. For building up a community, it really is something that needs to be an honest and authentic experience for you and for your audience. So don't do it because you feel you have to. Don't do it because you feel you should be someone else. Make sure that you know what you want to do. You have a target of who you want to communicate with, the kind of demographic and the type of area, maybe geographic area, and then communicate to those people in a way that feels authentic. And always be flexible. If something's not working, you can play around with it to try something else. If you've tried a video that doesn't work, try a different type of video, or maybe do a couple of images instead and just play around, because every audience is different. What works for one brand might not work for another. So watch what other people are doing, but play around and see what works for you. So go out there and have fun. That's my last bit of advice, really. It's not on the slide, but do have fun, because there's that kind of fun and enjoyment comes across. People don't go to pubs just for the sake of it. Well, some people do, but people go to the pub because it's fun, and you need to treat the online experience and building up a community as if you're going to the pub or a cafe or whatever it is. It's supposed to be an enjoyable experience for them and for you. So have fun.
Have fun. Love it. Thank you, Edwina. Well, I think, may I try to say something and mean it, which is that I think probably some of those who are on this conference this afternoon have heard a lot of talks on social media and kind of do's and don'ts, but I think we certainly felt that was one of the best we've ever heard, and very to the point, and very clear. And we'll be sharing more of that insight later, but I am delighted now to introduce our next speaker. Now, Doug, hello.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. So hopefully most of you know Doug, because he's been an extremely hard-working man over the last few years, and continues to be one of the easiest people to collaborate with that I know. Doug's a very busy guy, but he's very kindly given up some of his time this afternoon. It's hard to know how to introduce Doug, because in a sense he wears a number of hats, and one of those has actually just changed, and there's been an announcement this afternoon. Picking up on Edwina's point, you've got to watch your social media to know when announcements are being made. But I think, Doug, you're hot off the heels of the LEP board meeting, New Anglia Local Enterprise board meeting. I'm going to hand over straight to you and let you say a little bit more, Doug Field.
Thank you, Tim. So I obviously didn't think this through and followed a communication expert when we were doing a virtual conference, which probably was a bit of an error on my part. But I also think about trying to make these things fun and memorable. So I have to look at what there's an amazing plethora of days of the year. And apparently Friday was cheeseburger day, all the food related ones. Sunday was, or Monday was pepperoni pizza day. And this Friday apparently is Hug a Vegetarian Day, which I think with COVID and social distancing is a little bit tricky this year. But anyway, I'm here I'm going to share my screen, hopefully that works. I'm here to talk about food and drink and what support New Anglia LEP can do, because as of 2 o'clock I was the chair of New Anglia LEP, and now I've handed that baton over, and I suppose I am the chair of Norfolk and Suffolk Agri-Food Industry Council till I hand that baton over at the end of this presentation. So thank you for inviting me, but really I'm here to explain a little about what the LEP does and how it can support food and drink in Norfolk and Suffolk. Sorry, I'm getting a poll on my screen, bear with me. Right, the stats speak for themselves. We have 2% of the population and we generate over 11% of the food agricultural output. So, and that accounts for, there's 90,000 jobs, there's 9,000 businesses, and we've got revenue of over, and exports of over £600 million. And we're generating a lot more R&D. It's a vital sector for the region. And it's home to some world-leading national and national brands. There's Kettle Foods, Muntons, Adnams, Green King, British Sugar, Aspel's, Birdseye, Bernard Matthews. A plethora of really household food and drink names. But what interests me is that we only process 50% of the agricultural output that we grow. And if we do 50% more, we could generate another £2 billion of economic input for this region, which is really interesting and can really, really make a tangible difference to our economy. And Agri-Food is one of our key sectors for the Local Enterprise Partnership, along with clean energy and digital and ICT. And it's a vital sector for us and one we can do more to support. So how do we support the sector? Well, as I said, I was chair of the Agri-Food Industry Council, and that's a council that takes representation from across the industry, from research institutions, from food manufacturers, from farmers, from growers, from producers, from even from the professional advisors and from education, because we all know how important skills is. And that council is designed to help support, challenge, and shout about successes as well, and shout about the support and the opportunities that exist within our region. One of the recent pieces of work is this report you can see on in front of you, which gives you lots of information about the challenges and successes in the industry, especially within the COVID situation. And one of the key things that really, and it's a real source of intelligence for the LEP, to make sure that the programs they have can really support you and your business as you look to grow and respond to the challenges you face. And one of the most important parts of those meetings, and one I most enjoy, is when we have the State of the Nation, and everyone around the table, or virtual table as it is now, will explain what's happening on their industry in their individual pockets, and we pull all that knowledge together and we send it off to government to help inform them. Clearly they don't always listen, but that's the challenge that we all work with, and we continue to use that information to help us design our programs. And one of our key flagship programs over the last few months has been our Recovery and Resilience Fund, which we generated invested 3.5 million to help businesses adapt to the COVID situation. We've paid out over 2.5 million and generated over £6 million worth of investment in the region to make a real difference. But more specifically, some of the food and drink initiatives. We have the Food Enterprise Park, which is a combination with the Quadrum Institute, the Hethel Engineering Park, and lots of other people around just outside Norwich, designed to create innovation and a whole ecosystem to support food production in our region. And that's due to open in 2021. We're there to exploit trends, to understand how the market's moving, and make sure that we're there to exploit it and get at the front of the line. We're key about local food. And I'm also the Joint Chief Executive of the East of England Co-op, and local food is paramount to us. It's paramount to our offering. It's paramount to what makes us authentic. I was listening to the previous thing, and it's paramount what makes us fun. That partnership we have our local suppliers is a real point of difference for us, and really gives us a challenge. But also it's about generating the processing, making sure we can create contribute to the clean growth agenda if we can do more processing in our region. But we've not got to think outside the UK. And the picture there of the Adnam stand at Hawk Harbour was a food and drink producers going to Amsterdam early in the new year. And there again is that picture of all the food and drink producers we took out to Amsterdam to really help shout about their brands, shout loud and proud about what Norfolk and Suffolk has got to offer, the global food and drink. I went out there one day and amazed by the size of the exhibition and the real impact and cut through we had there with the branding Norfolk and Suffolk Unlimited. And that Norfolk Suffolk Unlimited is all designed to showcase our compelling offer and make it attractive for investment. And it works. You can see just down the A14, I'm here in just outside Ipswich, but just down the A14 there's a significant food warehouse and processing plant, LDH Ladoria, which is all sort of helped by the LEP to get investment. You'll recognise it taken over from the old sugar beet factory, and that's generated 440 jobs. We can make a difference, and we can help you and your businesses succeed. And we need to be world leading because it's a world market now, not just a UK or regional market. It's about being a global market and making sure we can shout loud and proud about what we have to offer. So what do we have to offer? We have business support through the new Anglia Growth Hub. We've got the Industry Council, and we've got lots of funding programs, probably too many to explain now, but they can invest capital funding, help you generate be more productive, be more efficient. And yes, sometimes it can be challenging going through the processes, but this is money designed to help you and help your business. So it's worth persevering. And importantly, we're here to promote Norfolk and Suffolk as a great place to live, work and learn. And that's important because we need, all our businesses are about people, and people really matter, and they can make the difference and help you grow your business. So that's a little bit about New Anglia LEP and how it can help you and your businesses succeed. So that's all I was going to say for the moment, but I'm hoping to join the panel a bit later. But as I did say at the beginning, do be careful and don't be hugging too many vegetarians on Sunday, I think.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. Really great. Great overview. And what you just said about the range of funding programs, I think specifically, we're very pleased in a couple of speakers' time to have Emma Taylor from New Anglia LEP to talk a little bit more about that in detail. But meanwhile, thank you, Doug. And may I say on behalf of all of us and all in the business community, thank you for all of your hard work and leadership as chair of New Anglia Local Enterprise. And we wish you well with all the busy things that you've got lined up. So thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, great. So, tough act to follow, Doug, but we have for you someone who plays a really important role in the local food and drink ecosystem, someone who many of you will know, and for those of you who don't, hopefully Valerie will introduce herself in her own inimitable way. But we've heard quite a lot this afternoon about changes to the way that we market and sell through COVID, the challenges perhaps to some of the bigger trade shows and festivals. But I am pleased to introduce Valerie Robson Brown, who's Director of Local Flavours and wears a number of other hats besides. Valerie, good to see you.
Hello, good to see you. I apologise, I've got a different hat on behind me, but I couldn't find the Local Flavours banner to put up. Possibly because it's got the wrong date on now.
Well, I'll leave it to you, Valerie, to explain a bit more about yourself, the various hats that you wear and Local Flavours. But thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know this is your third or fourth Zoom or Teams of the day, so thanks for giving up your time. And
no worries. No worries. I suppose the main thing is to get across the message that Local Flavours unfortunately had to move yet again. We were supposed to be holding, actually today was the original date for the Local Flavours trade B2B event at the showground, and unfortunately we had to move that because of COVID to October. And over the last 2 weeks we've had to move it again, and we've just made the decision to, and took it quite seriously, to move it to March the 10th, 2021. And in the hope that obviously things will have improved in the external environment. But that does show you that you know, how important it is that we've all had to change directions in the last 6 months, and online and electronic communication has been a big part of our world through that crisis and continuing. So Local Flavours, and I think most people watching this will know about it, I hope they know about it, is a trade event which we've been delivering for the last 8 years. We've held it at the Norfolk Showground for 7 of those, and the initial one we got together with Clark Willis and Ian at Honingham farm to put one on in a farmyard. And looking out the window at the moment, it was as raining as heavy as it is out there at the moment on that day, hence why we went undercover. So we get 120 producers, food and drink producers from the eastern region under one roof, and our job then is to get buyers from across the UK and actually further afield than that into Norfolk to meet some of the many wonderful food and drink producers we have in our region. And over the 8 years we've grown that to not only getting them in that one place once a year, but we also have set up a communication vehicle to both food and drink producers as well as to buyers of local produce, and we've used those databases and various communication tools to keep them connected throughout the year as well. And that came to the fore when we locked down in March, and we were able to use those databases to help our food and drink producers to still reach out to some of those buyers. And that was early days. We were called in by the LEP and by Clark to look at helping to shift some of the mountains of food which had got stuck during that lockdown process. So we were very busy, and whilst online and digital helped that position, we also what we are quite well known for is able to pick up the phone and talk to people. So we spent an awful lot of time early months getting out there and talking to people about how can they help to move the food mountains, and with varying success. But we did save quite a lot of food waste through that that activity. And we continued with weekly online newsletters out to those buyers and connecting them with suppliers, and that continues and will continue to sort of bridge that gap between now and next March, when hopefully we'll be able to hold an event again. Quite excited because of part of the process over the last 8 years, and that's working with Norfolk and Suffolk County Council and the LEP again. We've also managed to make a connection with the Netherlands, and there hasn't been much talk of Brexit in the last 6 months, but it is on the horizon. And only this week we've just connected with them again, and they will be hoping to come over in March to join us for Local Flavours again and bring some of their buyers and a few of their producers as well. But we're also planning a visit to the Netherlands in June to take some of our producers over there again. So that's quite hot off the press, and I'm working with the LEP on that at the moment to try and make that happen. So moving forward with the Local Flavours brand, we've tried some things different. We'll continue to try things differently over the next year. We're hoping to grow the brand with some B2C activity, so we'll be quite keen to tap in with some of the speakers we've heard from today and their online activity. And one of the other things which we'll be doing during November, December this year, as we haven't had an event, is we'll be doing some online meet the buyer activity. So we speak to people like Morrison's and Tesco's, East of England Co-op, Roy's, some of the wholesalers, and some of the smaller cafes and restaurants and such like. And we've been talking to them about developing an online meet the buyer sessions for our stand holders, and that's likely to go ahead in the winter. And the idea being we will get samples to those buyers, and we'll all sit in the comfort of our office or our home and share a Zoom meeting on tasting sessions and hopefully getting them to buy. And we intend to do that in groups, not just as one-to-ones, so that the producers who are participating can actually learn from each other as well, and sort of hints and tips there on how best to sell into those buyers. So that's quite exciting, and that's something which really we've developed quite quickly to keep that connection going between the trade, the buyers and the suppliers. So all exciting. As an events company personally, it's been a challenging year because we do lots of other events as well. And personally, we also have a couple of businesses, Chill Pod and Fresh Pod, which have done extremely well in the last 6 months. So long may they continue, and that's working with food and drink producers again across Europe on reducing food waste and reducing the reliance on refrigeration. So we've been busy with other hats on where we haven't been quite so busy on the event side. So anybody who's interested in knowing more about Local Flavours, we all, as always, thank, and I know there's many of our sponsors listening, and I'm not going to try and mention them all because I always miss one out, but it wouldn't happen without the sponsors, and it is a real collaboration between the public and private sector. And over the years, we know we've moved tens of thousands of pounds worth of local produce through that Local Flavours connection. So just like to thank you all for your ongoing support. We haven't lost anybody with the changes of date, and many of us are working together to make sure that happens. And one of the last thing to mention is that we're working very closely with Andrew Wheeler at West Suffolk College on developing the skills agenda for the hospitality, tourism, catering and leisure sector to help try and engage and encourage people into working into that industry. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll see you in March.
And fingers crossed we'll see you in March, Valerie. Thanks so much. And thank you for continuing to, bring all your, expertise to this space as it's changing quite rapidly and moving from kind of, through different channels. Local flavour is really important. And I think the important thing that I'm taking away from that is that in an environment where there are quite a lot of local food festivals and, consumer events and so on, Local Flavours is really, really key in terms of that business to business trade environment. We've heard about Horicava from Doug, but I would urge everyone, if they haven't done already, to engage with Valerie and the team around Local Flavours, and we wish you well with everything that's coming over the next few months. So thanks, Valerie. Now, next up, and Doug did a great trail for Emma, I must say. New Anglia LEP is a very important organisation that perhaps kind of like works some of the time behind the scenes and some of the time in the foreground to really help businesses. Is it fair to say, Emma, that you are the magic money tree, or is it a bit more complicated than that?
Sadly, no. My bosses did realise when they gave me the title funding manager that might be deceptive. It actually means I'm one of the people who goes out looking for money rather than having money. But never mind. The LEP does operate a number of programmes, as I am about to explain. So I'll just pause and share my screen, hopefully successfully, although that's always a fraught moment.
Take your time. It's a live event. Things, hooray! We're up. Well, okay, great.
So you're looking at funding support for food businesses and the Food Innovation Centre project, I take it?
We are.
Marvellous, good. It's always nerve-wracking when you have several documents open as to if it definitely did share the right one. Great, really nice to talk to everyone today. I'm opening a really short run through of funding opportunities and thoughts about funding with a slide that's all about some of our funding successes in the area. So all the businesses pictured on this first slide were successful in securing leader funding. from the EU leader programme. So Fen Farm Dairy with the Baron Bygod cheese, Flint Vineyard, Havensfield Eggs with their liquid egg, and Swannington Farm to Fork, whose delicious meat is stocked at Fielding Cottage, I'm delighted to say, were all successful in the leading funding programme, as were many other of our food businesses. At the other end of the scale of funding successes in the food sector in our area, this is Condimentum, which many of you will know about, a mustard and mint milling facility on the Food Enterprise Park at Honningham Thorpe, which is now open and operating, and had a cocktail of funding from the EU Rural Growth Programme and from the LEP Zone programmes as well. So various programs that we either coordinate or are involved in operating, or that we operate ourselves, have been instrumental in projects big and small in the food sector in this area. So where are we with funding at the moment? Well, it's an uncertain and volatile scene, as with many aspects of other aspects of life. A downside to start with is that the rural economy funding that we've been used to for many years from DEFRA, from LEADER and the Rural Growth Programme, has now finished, and that is it for that funding. There's been a lot of talk of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is the name given to the government for what they've said will replace these EU national funds, but we are not really anywhere very much with what that will look like or when it will come on stream. So there is a gap in that type of funding. However, the new Anglia Growth Hub provides access to a number of LEP grant programs, which I'll go through in a second, and signposts to other programs that are potentially helpful for food businesses, and they also help food businesses negotiate the quagmire of issues arising from access to banking loans and equity investment of all kinds, so not just looking at grants. On the way, however, we have, and I will come on to these at the end of my quick presentation, we have the Food Innovation Centre project, which is a huge opportunity for businesses in our area, and the Drive project, which is also potentially very, very useful for food businesses. So there's some good stuff coming too. The new Anglia Growth Hub, or those on the call who are not familiar with this service, is a really, really key service for all of our businesses in this area, providing free, impartial, confidential advice to businesses. The contact details are on several of these slides, and you'll receive them afterwards, and helping businesses get access to grants and finance of all kinds, as well as helping businesses to negotiate the raft of regulation, not just standard regulation, but all the new regulation that's come out of the COVID-19 outbreak. And I think it's worth just pausing to say that ever since the pandemic started, we have been working across all district councils, county councils, and the LEP, working with the Growth Hub to ensure that there is one single script that advisors operate to, which is updated weekly with the most up-to-date guidance, information from government. All of that sort of wash of information is filtered and sorted and arranged, so when you ask a question, we can go to the right answer to that question, and it's current. So that's been going on ever since March and has been really valued by the businesses who've dealt with the Growth Hub. Some of the grant schemes that we have, these come from the ERDF EU funding programme, which is separate from all of the funding that goes to through the Common Agricultural Policy to farming businesses. So many of you will be aware that there's has always been a real wall in funding between funding for farmers and funding for other stuff, and it does mean that there are possibly some of you on the call who will have projects that are not going to work for some of these schemes because you're too much on the farming side, and it's also the case that some retail schemes are not eligible for some of this funding. But the most important thing is get in touch with the Growth Hub if you have a project, and they can help you with all of that, rather than me try and set out all the nitty-gritty rules and regulations. So our small grant scheme is grants from £1 to £25,000 up to 20% of your project value. My colleagues in the Growth Hub team have worked really, really hard to get the most simple possible form and process for this scheme, and to help people work through it. So even if you're a bit allergic to application forms, this is a reasonably simple one to go for, and very much helped a lot of businesses. We also have, for larger projects, the Growing Business Fund that's continuing to distribute grants, or coming very close to the end of the pot of money we currently have. However, still potentially opportunities for larger projects to secure funding. We have a new programme called the Growth Through Innovation Fund. And again, Growth Hub advisors will point you to this if this is the right fund for your project. But it will support at a much higher proportion of your project costs some innovation and research and development projects that could help food businesses that are trying to do some new stuff, particularly around, say, research coming out of Norwich Research Park, or new products that you're looking at. It doesn't necessarily have to be desperately whizzy innovation. It could be innovation as in stuff your kind of business hasn't done before. So it's really worth talking to the Growth Hub about that one. We also have, and this has been immensely popular, the Business Resilience and Recovery Scheme, which we put out at the beginning of lockdown. Grants from £25,000 to £50,000 with a higher intervention rate, 50% of project costs, which provide capital funding for projects that are helping to repurpose your business in the light of the pandemic, and also help with a bit of consultancy to steer you through that process. It's a really quick turnaround. We've had a lot of grants go through that pot already. We'll send you links to our website. One of the really useful things to look on our website and ask if you can't find it is we have lots of lists of funded projects, and that's always helpful to look at, I think, with these schemes. So there's the new Anglia Growth Hub. Contact details, as I say, you'll have those afterwards. Always important to contact them. They will point you to these projects that are on the next screen if they think these projects are going to be helpful to you. But I thought it's just worth making you aware of some of the other kinds of projects that are around that could be useful to you. So Be Anglia, which is operated by Suffolk County Council on behalf of a partnership, helps businesses do a free energy review of how they use energy, and offers grant funding towards energy efficiency projects of up to £20,000. And Invest East might be relevant for some of your businesses. It's an investor-led program helping businesses with a really intensive program of support and guidance to get investment ready for equity investment. They're just two of the other projects that are around, but as I say, the Growth Hub's the best starting point. However, if you think either of these is of interest, there are the web links. Do have a look. Coming soon, this is going to be a really, really useful project for quite a number of you, I hope, and it's due to launch in towards the end of this year or the very beginning of next year. This is an ERDF grant scheme from Norfolk County Council in partnership with Suffolk County Council, called DRIVE, Delivering Rural Investment, Vital Employment, another fabulous acronym there. And DRIVE is a successor really to the LEADER programme, which many of you will be familiar with. LEADER is finishing. The LEADER teams at the county councils were deeply frustrated by that because they've got some brilliant staff and brilliant expertise in this area. They see a need for grant funding and business support for rural businesses specifically. So they've gone to the ERDF funding programme, and DRIVE will support and enable an in-depth business planning process with a a mentor from the Drive programme who will help you look across your business for what the capital investment needs might be and the business planning needs, and help you develop a project in quite a detailed way. And at the end of that process, you can go for a capital grant of between £5,000 and £30,000 at 40% of your total costs. You have to invest the rest, and the grant decisions will be made by local people, as with the Leader programme. So it's very much a new fund from the Leader programme teams. However, because it's from a different funding programme, they won't be able to support farms other than in some diversification projects may be eligible, and retail projects may be an issue as well. But processing businesses, absolutely, Drive will be able to support you. It's going to be a really fabulous project. And finally, is the Food Innovation Centre, which I and others on this call are heavily involved in developing and getting through the funding and development process. We will very, very soon be able to start sharing images of what the centre could look like and fun stuff like that. This will be at the Food Enterprise Park near Norwich, but it is a regional project and intended to be so. And you'll see on the slide a list of the partners with Broadland District Council leading it, but UEA, Hethel Innovation, Quadram Institute and others very much involved in its development. Huge support, for example, from Valerie, who's just spoken earlier, and her invaluable access to and kind of credibility with food businesses in the area is going to be absolutely essential to this project. The new centre is due to be built next year, believe it or not, start being built, with a linked programme of innovation activity in food businesses. And what that means is we will have lettable food grade businesses in a fabulous prestigious setting with access to a central hub building. We will have bespoke innovation support to food businesses from all of these partner organisations, including the likes of Andrew Fern you've just heard from earlier, and that will be free support to businesses. We will also be working, UEA will be working particularly to develop a cluster to try to get food businesses together more, working together and collaborating to make our sector really, really strong. The project will also enable more collaboration with Norwich Research Park and so on. Do get in contact with us if you'd like to be on our mailing list for Food Innovation Centre news or hear what's going on. Do also get in contact with us, and absolutely fine to contact me. My contact details will be available after this event. As food businesses, we are also really dependent on your business intelligence and your feeding into us what's going on for your businesses in terms of what we say to government about this sector. So, and it does go right to the highest levels of government. So if you want your voice to be heard in terms of what's going on for your business and what support you think you need from government, can't promise we can make stuff happen, but we can make sure your voice is heard. So do get in touch with stuff that's going on, how things are for you, support or issues that you think are needed for your sector. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much, Emma. Again, loads going on, loads of different programmes for the informed layperson. Emma is a very, very good go-to if you want to get in touch with her. But as you say, the Growth Hub will be able to signpost you to all of these things. Now, we have our final speaker of the afternoon, and I am delighted to introduce Matt Anderson. Matt, hello.
Hi all, how are you doing? Okay.
Hi, so without further ado, because time is of the essence, I should just say to everybody, if you have got a question for the panel after Matt's talk, please do post it down in Q&A. I'm going to hand over to Matt Anderson of Marketplace AMP to give us the sort of, is it the icing on the cake, or is it the sort of, is it the, you know, is it the vodka shot? I don't know what it is. Over to you, Matt.
Okay, thanks so much. Yes, I'm Matt. I'm going to be talking to you today about e-commerce and marketplace opportunities for food brands in the region. The last slot of the day is somewhat of a blessing or a curse. You had a ton of content to look at today. I appreciate that. So I'm going to try and keep it succinct and to the point, and start off with an analogy from Jeff Bezos. As you can imagine, I live and breathe Amazon. I watch what he does a lot. And he believes in the power of three. Power of three, where you're looking at every single day, enormous organisation. And let's face it, business owners like ourselves, we have a lot to look at. Focus on 3 decisions and execute them really, really well every day. And if you do that and just cut down your list and focus. So let's look at the power of 3 in the case of e-commerce opportunities. Well, we've heard from Andrew Fern and others before about the move away from super centres and shopping centres. So there's been a 77% drop overall in shopping. And before COVID, we know that online groceries have switched and been accelerated by COVID from approximately 15% to 27.9%, according to the Food Marketing Institute. Ocado is booming. Amazon's growing its offering into fresh, partnership with Morrison's. Waitrose has jumped on the bandwagon after losing that tie-up with Ocado, and now we've got a partnership with Deliveroo. So all the supermarkets are heavily focused now on online, and they're trying to stave off competition from Ocado and Amazon. So that's a massive opportunity for ourselves, but we also mustn't forget about our own channels. So I'd like to just use a case study of Hill Farm Oils is one of our clients, and they've really benefited from over COVID, because the switch from food service to direct to consumer has been massive for them. Their sales have increased over 400% in the first quarter this year through e-commerce channels like Amazon. Units 392%. And it's true that we've seen across all of our food clients an increase on average of 284% in sales through online channels. And broadly what we're seeing is that trend is tracked up and staying now, even after lockdown was easing. About 2/3 of people are moving in that direction after the event as well. So how can we take advantage of this trend and grow sales? Well, 3 things. Digital content, looking at, if you haven't already because of COVID, pivot your business to take advantage of new trends, to throw away from wholesaler, as Andrew was saying, and trying to move more to direct to consumer and benefit from those shopping habits. And also about data, the use of data. Many food brands have a surprising lack of data because they have the supermarket or the wholesaler in between them and the end consumer. E-commerce allows us to give us a wealth of data, but we need to leverage it. So let's break down these 3 points. Let's start with content. Well, content overall, majority of shoppers online are on mobile, so we need to think about optimizing content for mobile phones. Now, a lot of food brands will look at point of sale within store or packaging, and this may be an afterthought, but we need to think about that. So mobile optimized, can we read it easily? Is it easily legible on the digital shelf? Is it quick to load? All those good things. Understanding your consumer journey online. So you may have already done SEO, keyword research, for example. Drilling into that and ensuring your copy is mobile optimized, so it will be found and relevant on Ocado, on Sainsbury's online, on Morrison's online, or on Amazon for that matter. And really understand your consumer journey as well. Why would someone want to buy your product? And talk about benefits rather than specifications or features of your product as well. 2, pivot your product offering. We can see the underlying trends, and COVID has accelerated them, but it's only going in one direction. 25 to 35-year-olds, 66% of them said they were actually happy just to go shopping online. So we need to make sure that we're doing that. So think about bulk or convenience rather than single units. So in the case of Hill Farm Oil, 750ml bottles were the best sellers in store in Sainsbury's, for example, but 5 litre and 2 litre plastic bottles online are actually their best sellers. So like Wild Knight said, increasing your average order value makes the logistics and all the additional packaging that you may need work. So think about that. Think about gifting, multi-packs, multi-variants as well. People are more likely to buy more online because they don't want to be doing it every day. They want to do it on every 2 weeks, every month. To look at e-commerce packaging, think about how it's going to be delivered to the end consumer. So not just that we want to stop it from breaking down to a million pieces, clearly, but also how does it look when you open the box? What's the opening experience like as well? Because that will get you reviews and repeat customers. So think about subscriptions as well. So whether that be subscribe and save, or partnerships with Gusto or HelloFresh, or whoever it may be, think about that. And also pivot your business, not just a website, think about click and collect perhaps, or even whether it's partnering up with local farm shops to be in that veg box, or a weekly delivery that people may want as well. Because it's all about convenience at the end of the day. And I'm just conscious time's running up, but also I'll end on data, which is a very important point. Factoid, your salesperson's probably got the most valuable data that you have in the business at the moment. Go and speak to them. What data are you getting from Ocado, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, etc. online? Can you re-engineer that business into your business? Can you use it for NPD? Andrew Fern mentioned earlier on in the day, he's talking about rationalizations of products. That means you have less and less chance to get the right product in the right time in front of a buyer. So if you can use that data and use platforms like Amazon, because there's no buyer in the way, you can test and learn NPD products to show data that this is a winner, guys. This is what consumers want. I've sold 10,000 units online. You've got to stock it in Waitrose, Tesco's, wherever it may be. So just to recap, think about your content, but also in a digital way. It'll also help your social media channels. So things like lifestyle photography are really important as well to support your online listings, but work really well in social. Think about pivoting your offering, how you can be agile in switching your offering, and also thinking about your logistics as well. Second lockdown has been rumoured at the moment. Think about stock, where it should be, and also, don't want to mention the Brexit word, but I will. Think about how you're going to get it onto the continent as well, because that will also be an is consideration if you're selling on Amazon in the EU as well. And data. You need to make more of it. And Amazon, Ocado, and your own website are perhaps some of the richest sources of data for your business. Use it, don't lose it. Okay, that's me. Thank you.
Use it, don't lose it. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Matt, very much for cantering through that at a brisk pace. So everybody on the conference, we're now on just, I think, sort of roughly 8 minutes past 4. It is our sincere hope that we will finish this on time at 4:30, so you can get on with the rest of what's going on in your afternoons. And in order to do that, I'm now going to bring the panel straight on. So everybody, we have Matt. Can we have Emma, Doug, Edwina, Steph, Andrew, Sam, Valerie? Who have I missed out?
Me, Edwina.
And Edwina. So videos on, please, everybody. We're going to kind of kick this off. Right. So,
Tim, I have an issue putting my video on if you just want to. We did the host withholding, so if somebody could sort that. Thank you.
okay.
I have the same.
Okay, so someone will do that. It might be me. All right.
I know I don't have lipstick on, but really.
Lipstick is not required at this point.
I forgot mine.
Unless it's a local brand that you wish to promote. Great. So here we all are. We're here for the panel. This always proves to be a popular bit, and we've got, by my clock, about 20 minutes. I have made an executive decision, which is that if this panel is kind of really flowing and going beyond that, given that this is a recorded webinar, we will drift on a little bit. But if I see that the participant numbers are sort of drifting and people are logging off, I'll wrap it up. So without further ado, we've had some great questions in the Q&A, and thanks to everyone who's asked those. But before we kind of dive into some of those, if I may, I'm just going to kind of ask a fairly blunt question, which is that we've heard about willingness to be agile, ability to pivot, taking a risk, doing things quickly, and particularly picking up on Sam's point from earlier. This is actually all about the team around you and the people you work with. And I think we all know, as we've seen over the last few months, sometimes, you know, it's easier said than done to want to change something and change it quickly. So I guess my question would be particularly to Stefan, Matt, to, you know, to Valerie. I know you've been making changes as you've gone through, to Sam. I mean, how do you as a leader or as owners, how do you go about creating the right environment with your team and your people to make those very quick and very necessary steps?
Well, from our side, our team is quite small, so it's kind of easier, really. I mean, Steph and I work together in the business. We've got some external people who we use, who, if you like, on a freelance type basis. I suppose it's, but when you're dealing with other people other than ourselves, it is about sharing. Just being open, communication, sharing the vision of what we're trying to do, in the full knowledge that not everything's going to work, but you don't stop trying stuff just because it's not going to work. I think it is that ability just to give it a go sometimes, but also knowing when to stop. You know, when something's not working, to cut it quickly. But I think it's just about communication.
And do you, when you've had that moment of something's not working, you think you want to stop, is that about instinct? Is it about experience? Is it about data? I mean, in reality, how have you made those decisions within your business?
It's probably a bit of all of those things to a degree. And sometimes it's really hard to stop something that's your idea. But you've got to, you know, you've just got to, you know, I'm saying you know, I have to accept that not everything works. But you need a certain amount of data. I mean, one of the great things about digital is you do have data and you need a certain amount. I mean, we've tried, for example, running some online ads as well, with, I'd say, a bit of mixed success. But you need a certain amount of data to make a decision as to whether that's working or not. And you've got to, I suppose, be able to sit it out long enough to gather that data. But sometimes you just see it's not going to work. You just think, let's try a different way.
We tried social media advertising, like on Facebook, and we did it a few times, didn't we? But we couldn't attribute anything back to it, so we cut that out.
Well, we got some orders, but the spend versus the basically the pound spent for the pound back they weren't in the right direction. You know, the balance was wrong. So we've parked that for the social media ads side. We do a lot on social media, but in terms of specifically spending on advertising, you know, we tested that for a little while.
Okay. Sam, I mean, from your point of view, you talked about the importance of your team, and it's a group effort. It's not just about you as the main man. I mean, how did you tackle the question of, you know, taking people on the journey at a time where there's a lot of uncertainty, getting buy-in for decisions, making sure that all the good stuff that you built up over a number of years wasn't sort of chucked out in a sort of like a sudden move?
They have to have fun. They have to want to come to work, and they have to enjoy being here. But everybody, we empower everybody. Everybody's got their own responsibilities. They can make their own decisions. They can, if they want to go and do something, I'm not going to stop them. They can go and have a go, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, then they'll learn from the mistake, and we'll just support them in it. And dare I say it, they're all young. They're all full of ideas and full of, you know, motivation. They've got the drive, the enthusiasm, and everything to go. I'm just supporting them, and it's, you know, they've got as many ideas as me. But yeah, it's empowering them and letting them run with their ideas.
Thank you. So I'm getting a bit of echo on this. I'm just going to take my headset off. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Doug, you said the head of a larger organisation. Andrew, you sit within a very large organisation, where you've got a more complex or a bigger organisation, and some of the producers on the call are. I mean, does it change? Do those principles still apply, or do you have to think about things differently?
I think the principles still apply, Tim. You've got to you know, leader and manager, they're coming to, it's all about coaching, it's all about empowering, it's all about making sure that you've got the right culture, isn't it? And that you've got the right, but going back to Edwina's point, it's about being authentic. And if you can be authentic, and you can be authentic as a leader, as an organisation, you'll bring people with you.
Yeah, and
Fantastic. Andrew, go.
There's lots of evidence, isn't there, that the more empowered and the more justly people feel they're treated by the organisation, the more likely they are to commit. So your productivity goes up, your creativity goes up, your innovation goes up. All the KPIs go in the right direction because they feel part of the team. But I wanted to add one thing, because collaboration is a big thing for me. And if in the minute you think of collaboration as part of the team, only it's the extended team. So I wouldn't want companies to believe that it's just about your people. It's about the other people in other companies and organizations that you can access. And that is a capability that many people lack. It's not very well understood. So that whole area of collaboration, Clark asked a question about putting it into practice, and I'm not going to go on about it because it might be that that's not very interesting for the people. But you are constrained by the resources that you own, people and capital. So if you only focus on the the relationships that are internal to your business, your growth will be constrained, has to be. So the ability and the desire to collaborate takes you into building teams outside, which I think dovetails perfectly with Edwina. It is about growing the community. It's a different kind of a community, but it's a community which shares your passion for growth and with whom you can both win. So having a win-win anyway. So I don't lose track of collaboration as part of your team building strategy. Yeah, so that's a great link actually to the next one, which was I mean, Clark actually asked the question. Clark Willis, who's played a really key role in pulling this together, also along with Jordan Sharman from Hethel. So Clark and Jordan, thank you. Work behind the scenes. So there was a question about collaboration, and that's kind of like a big word. It's a C word. It's a big word. How does it work? What does it mean? There were some really, really good examples of collaboration. So like Steph and Matt talked about collaboration with UEA and other partners around hand sanitizer. You know, Edwina was talking about kind of collaborating with your community around you. Sam was collaborating with the team, etc., etc. We had loads of that. And it sounded to me like trust was a big part of collaboration. It's kind of, we are all collaborating now, but there's something about putting the trust in place. And I guess, you know, how do you build trust when you can't see people face to face? This has got to be something that we all are thinking about now. I mean, Valerie, you've got a whole network of people that you work with and you know and trust, but how do you build kind of engagement when new producers are coming to you, for example, now thinking about local flavours? You know, what does that look like from your point of view?
I think because we've been going for several years now, that obviously helps enormously, but there's always someone new on the block, and we get lots of recommendations now. Our support network for local flavours is enormous, and those people in that network, we've all worked together on this for years, so we're very, very lucky. But we are good at community. I say we're good at communication. We're good at communication because we're a communication company, and we've kept going for 18 years. And we're a mix of youth and experience, which you need in these days. And you can guess what side of that fence I am. But yeah, so our mix of communication tools, our networks, and we deliver as well. I think that's the thing, and we work damn hard to keep it going.
There was so going back to some of the questions that have been coming up through the Q&A. There was a really specific question which I thought was well worth thinking about, which was about, you know, if you're on social and you're engaging with your customers and your audience, you know, how often should you post? How frequent should that post be? I mean, Edwina, you talked about this kind of consistency perhaps being more important than the, you know, volume per se. I mean, there are people that I follow on social media who appear to post about every 5 minutes, and then there are people who appear to post every 6 months, and I enjoy them both. But finding that rhythm of communication is important. So I suppose the question is, you know, perhaps to Edwina to lead in with this, but also for us all to think about is, you know, as a community, as a support community around the food and drink producer market and sector over the next few months, you know, how should we be thinking about online events, webinars, social, you know, the desire to kind of help people, and also a willingness to give people a little bit of time to sort of switch off if they need to, or declutter their inbox. I mean, Edwina, what would your top tip be for a brand thinking about how to avoid overloading its audience and its community with information?
Yeah, and overloading its own capacity as well. Yeah, I'm really keen on thinking about the online world as a reflection of the offline world. So if you think about what kind of friend you are, I think this is helpful. So are you the kind of friend that calls up once a week and says, hi, how are you doing, and has a really good conversation? Or are you the person that you see at the water cooler every single day? Or are you the friend that you don't see for 6 months and then have a really good chat? And you can sort of take that and use that on social. Are you the kind of brand that is going to be on 2 or 3 times a day, giving loads of little updates about what's going on? Or are you going to be 2 to 3 times a week, or 2 to 3 times a month? You've got to think about what is realistic for you and your own capacity, and then what your audience expects or wants from you. Do they want to have that friendship that's quite consistent? And if you've got quite a broad brand, then they might need lots of information about where to get your products, when the different offers are, and all the different things that you've got to talk about. If you've got quite a niche brand and you've just got a small amount of things to talk about, you maybe want to say less, or just say really meaningful things. And there are some brands, I used a Mr. Hughes example earlier, you know, a farm brand, you can just say, right, it's harvest, I'm not going to see you for 3 weeks. You know, you be honest and and reflect who you are in the real world.
Yeah, so that kind of picks up on what you were saying about behind the scenes. If you can show what's going on behind the scenes with your brand, people will be more understanding of you know what's going on.
Yeah, they've got to know what to expect. So just don't burn out. Don't do loads and stop, because that's the worst thing, because you're leaving people hanging. They'll feel dumped.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to what I hope will be a final sort of question, and I'm going to just let everyone go through this. And you know, here we are. It's September, and things are changing. The guidance from government is changing. Things are perhaps tightening up. I was speaking to a food producer first thing this morning, and he said to me, Tim, you know, there are some decisions that we made or didn't make back in, say, April, that with the benefit of hindsight, we would have made sooner and taken advantage of that. So for each of you, please, what would be your kind of one piece of advice, you know, kind of back to yourself and out to the audience for this event, and the wider audience who'll be catching up with this on the recorded Zoom. I'm going to go in sort of order of the screen that I see. So Matt,
Okay.
Marketplace AMP. Sorry. Matt Anderson, what's your one piece of advice at this point to the businesses out there?
I think it's just back your convictions. You know, if you really believe in your brand and your business, like I do, you know, when there's a lot going on, and I don't want to list everything, but there's a lot going on with COVID and Brexit and have you. Is really focusing on your business and back yourself would be really something that, you know, I was probably a little bit conservative coming out of COVID, whereas I could probably have backed myself a bit more, you know, because our business is booming. I'm in a fortunate position, but, you know, I think equally, you know, if you're struggling, is really focusing on what do you do really well. Don't try and spread yourself too thin. What do you do well? focus your resources on it, what's your sort of key selling point, and really go after it and back your convictions. And that's what I have done some of that, but I haven't, so I'm going to tell myself off more to say that's what I should do.
Back your convictions. So Matt is data plus gut feel equals a result. Andrew, would you back that up? Take yourself off mute if you would, please. Professor Fern. Unmute yourself, please.
I'm just ranting to myself. Yes, I do that all the time, as people know. The only thing I would add to that is the reflection piece. So, gut feeling, data, yes, and the go for it. Your passion gets you so far, right, and gets you a long way actually. But the world has changed forever. So, and we are constrained by what we've been through historically. History, you don't throw it out the door. But I think you've got to ask the question, are we fit for purpose? Does my strategy, is it still valid? So yes, of course you back yourself, but I would just pause for a second just to reflect on, am I still going in an appropriate direction in this new world? Which goes back to my point about too many SMEs don't have a strategy. And therefore, if you've been successful by good chance and good luck, you can't rely on luck seeing you through forever. You've got to have a strategy. So you've got to think about it.
Yeah, well, something I learned from 2008 till now is, really to take time to focus in on the strategy. How are we going to accelerate out of this? Okay, so Matt, Andrew, thank you. Doug, you're up next. Top tip, a piece of advice.
I think it's about, it's a terrible situation, COVID, but what we've got to do is look for the opportunities and grasp those opportunities. And I think there will be opportunities that arise, but you've got to be ready and adaptable to take them. And I think it's a sort of survive, revive, thrive type model where you've got to, first of all, obviously you've got to survive, you've got to look to revive your business, then you've got to look for the opportunity to thrive.
Survive, revive, thrive. Steph and Matt. Is the answer to drink a bit more of your vodka?
We would never say that, never. I'd say the important thing for us is that we delight our customers. So with every order we get, we do something a little bit above and beyond to delight them. So hopefully they will tell others, and our business as well.
I think it's also, I think it is staying agile, because the situation is unfolding before our very eyes, isn't it? Really, we get different advice almost on a daily basis these days, and the question is how that's going to affect human behaviour in the longer term. As Andrew's saying, that what's happened in the past is that there's a whole new set of rules setting up in front of us at the moment. So it's staying agile. It's obviously dealing with today, but just trying to think beyond all of this as to what the world could be and how we set ourselves up in a way where we can embrace those opportunities. I mean, at the end of the day, we are human beings selling to other human beings, and that doesn't change. It's just that maybe the channels change and the methods change and the means of communication change, but it's people selling to people, isn't it? Really, that's fundamentally what's at the bottom of it all.
Brilliant. Valerie, what would you say to yourself 6 months ago? Is there anything that you think was a missed opportunity, or that you think is now an imperative in a different way?
I think you've got to be open and honest and keep communication going. And only last week, so when we closed down in March, we just got our biggest order ever for chill pod roll cage covers from a big multinational chain, and it was stopped 2 days after they gave us the order. So we thought we'd done it, and then we hadn't done it, and it came back on track last week. Great. And then our Welsh factory was closed down the following day because COVID crept into the workforce. So we've had 2 weeks without no production at all, and it's quite scary to go back to that person and say, I'm really sorry, after 6 months and getting back on track, we can't deliver it. But actually, they've been really understanding and supportive, and are going to work with us through to help. And that's a big thing for them, because they have to stop their own strategies and things to incorporate us. They could quite easily dump us as we're in an SME. So it's just talking to them, keeping in, and I've got to speak to them after this, keep the communication going, doesn't matter who you are, and be open and honest as well. If you can't deliver, don't say you can.
Brilliant. Open and honest, as ever. Emma Taylor, the most open and honest person I know.
Really? Very bribable, though. Yeah, as a funding manager. I suppose my key thing at this very reactive time for businesses will be try to take time to stand back and plan calmly as well, so you're not just always in that firefighting reactive mode, and take advantage of the free advice and support that you've heard about today, because there are a lot of people who are passionate to help businesses and have a lot to offer, and a lot of that is genuinely free, so take advantage of it.
Yeah, so leverage everything that's available, and you know, really go for it. Edwina.
I think there's a big difference between pivoting your business and having a knee-jerk reaction. And you've got to be careful that you pivot. And when it comes to communications, because that's, I guess, why you're asking me, you've got to build up the loyal customers, because they're the ones that will stick with you. And if they can't afford you right now, they'll come back. So just nurture the people that are around you and nurture your community, and just be very honest, because COVID isn't happening to you, it's happening to all of us. So as Valerie said, people are more understanding than you think. So just be open and have that dialogue.
Okay, great. And last but not least, Sam, what's your word of advice to yourself and to the others?
Just reiterate what everybody else has said, really. Communicate with the customers and give them what they want, and they'll see it as a reward, but equally reward your staff as well, and the people that you work with, because without them, none of us have got a business, customers or staff. So you can give something back to them. Don't be greedy. Take it all. Don't take it all. And at the end of the day, we're food and drink businesses, and people have to eat. So they're going to need us.
Well, thank you, Sam. I mean, thank you to all the panel. You've been a wonderful panel. We're now kind of moving into the final stage. And I mean, you can all leave your videos switched on, I think, as I just wrap this up and get ready to sort of say goodbye to the team. I know some people now have to go, but I'd just like to thank, on behalf of us all who've been involved in the production of this conference, RISE. First off, I would like to thank all of you who've attended this afternoon and given up your time. It's a very, very busy time. You've been great in terms of engaging with us, interacting with us in the chat and the Q&A and the polls. So thank you to you all. Thank you to all of our speakers. And I'm not actually going to go through everyone now, but you know, I think everyone will have a goodbye from all the speakers. If you'd like to wave and say goodbye, thank you. You've been terrific. And thank you to all of our partners in delivering this event. They are Norfolk County Council. A particular thanks to Jen Fuller at Norfolk County Council, who's been amazing at pulling this together. At Tech East, Bridget Curran, who worked extremely hard to pull this together with me. At New Anglia LEP, a raft of people, but Doug, outgoing chair, Emma, key person, the communications team there, Norfolk Chamber of Commerce. Also thanks to Clark Willis, to Jordan Sharman at Hethel Engineering, and from all of us, thank you for being with us this afternoon. You can catch up with all of this online afterwards. We will be here to support you through the Growth Hub and other means over the coming weeks and months and years. So on behalf of everybody from RISE, thank you very much. Goodbye and have a great evening. All the best.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye.
Thank you.